Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Decentralized Chain, bringing you the latest news, reviews, and blockchain tech. So today we are doing yet another ICO review. I've been asked by a couple of the members in my community to look at Open Platform. So Open Platform is really coming across to be the first developer wallet and payment infrastructure. So the idea here is that they're providing the missing payment infrastructure for all the on-chain payments and payment data into both centralized and decentralized applications. So most applications will require a use of off-chain technologies, right? If we're going to be processing payments, and therefore it requires both on-chain and off-chain components that can communicate each other for those payments to actually occur. And so with the Open Platform, the idea here is that it provides developers with the payment rails they need basically for their applications to be able to handle the on-chain transactions and to update the off-chain data tables as well at the same time, so keeping everything synchronous without having to run everything on-chain. So therefore you can see that it becomes much faster, it's a much smoother process overall. And basically what that will allow really is for developers ultimately at the end of the day to be empowered to kind of continue using the technologies that they're good at using, that they know how to use, and they know how to use really well and very comfortable with. But at the same time, they can then start looking at interacting with other blockchains with minimal blockchain knowledge. So let's kind of have a look at what that looks like in terms of visualizing some of that. So as you can see here within the diagram, what we've got is we've got the application layer, you've got the internal middle blue, which is the Open Platform, and then you've got the blockchain at the back. So really the idea here is that this blue icon in the middle, which represents the Open Platform product, is providing the payment infrastructure. So it's filling the gap basically between the application and the blockchain. So all of those components that are necessary in order for the two to communicate, that's what this particular platform is providing. Whereas traditionally, if someone is looking to integrate with a blockchain directly from their application, then they have to ultimately create that inner working in order for the two to communicate effectively with each other. So that's what that Open Platform is there to do. And then at the same time, what that then does is that it solves all the on-chain payments. So ultimately it's an all-in-one application which helps with transferring of the data payments, verification, so authorizing the goods for the applications to be purchased, and it works both ways, so on-chain and off-chain. And as I mentioned before, as you can see, there's only three main components. The main components here are the application layer, which is what the developers know how to code, how to create. That's what they're really focused on. You've got the Open Platform, which then allows the developer to then go ahead and then communicate with the blockchain in terms of what you see at the bottom of the actual diagram. So as we move on in terms of just understanding what some of those components are within there, so ultimately what that provides, the Open Platform, is it provides the components in order to make that connection happen between on-chain and off-chain data and all the associated payment data that goes with it. It provides the deployment infrastructure as well at the same time. So rather than having to create your own deployment infrastructure in order to communicate your front-end application with the back-end blockchain, it does that component for you. Once again, it's multi-platform, so it works across all platforms in terms of whether you're looking at a software as a service, whether you're looking at enterprise solution, whether it's a gaming app, whether it's an iOS app, for example. And then more importantly, it's not really limited by any blockchain. The actual Open API, the actual Open Platform itself is blockchain agnostic. So ultimately you can start looking at leveraging as many different cryptocurrencies as you want, as many different blockchains associated with those as you want. So then as we kind of move on, really when we say it's the first developer wallet, what we mean is actually wallet made for developers. So ultimately it's there to take all the complexities out of the blockchain, simplify that for those looking ultimately to integrate blockchain into their applications. And really this is key, because one of the areas here which is kind of stopping it from becoming mainstream is that they need to learn a whole new language. They need to learn a whole new development methodology that goes with it. So that kind of really hinders progression into mainstream. Whereas if you create something, which is what we've got here, ultimately the open platform, then that pretty much makes that whole development piece very easy and streamlined. In fact, it requires minimal knowledge about the blockchain that you're looking to port onto, and ultimately you use the open platform to do all of that for you in terms of creating the two connections. And so you can focus heavily on your application and making sure that your front end is right and the customer experience is exactly what you need it to be, the user experience associated is what you need it to be, and then ultimately you use a much more simplified approach to then communicate with the associated blockchain that you're going to use for your cryptocurrency payments. To kind of really understand how the technology works, if we look a bit under the hood, first of all, you've got the open wallet. So this is really where you're accepting your various cryptocurrencies as payment within your application front end. That then integrates with the open state, which is the user state, and the scaffold generator. And so what those two components ultimately allow you to do is to really form a glove around your application, and that will then provide all the hooks that you need in order to use the open API to then communicate with the blockchain of choice. And that then basically provides the back and forth between the on-chain and off-chain data flow, and ultimately keeping both sides synced up so you have complete visibility of the user's funds and the states, as well as whether they have the funds in order to cover the use of the actual application itself at the end of the day. So moving on, looking at so what is the actual value of the token itself? Well, the token basically activates that scaffold generator that we saw before. So without having these tokens in place and without having a set amount of tokens in place, you're not going to be able to activate and open the API. So ultimately you're staking some of those tokens. Now, the other element to sort of understand here is that in terms of payments and how that's kind of generated, well, once the payment's been made, there is a fee that's taken, and here they take a 3% fee of the tokens, but that fee then actually goes back into the development pool. So the idea here is that the fee is there to incentivize developers to be able to create further applications using the open platform, because at the end of the day, if they launch the ICO, they get it out there, you're still going to need to incentivize the masses to use your platform over any other platform out there that's looking to do something similar. So there is always going to be a sense of incentivization, and this is fine. If they're taking the 3% fee out, they're not necessarily putting it back into their own pocket. What they're doing is they're taking that 3% fee and putting it back into the developer fund or pool, and that is then used to incentivize more developers to create more of their applications, to utilize the open platform, and then that circle goes on. So you've kind of got a self-fulfilling pool whereby you're always constantly growing it, and you always have that liquid currency there in order to incentivize others to come back to you. Now, moving on and looking at the team overall, we have a team with backgrounds from Samsung, Facebook, Pivotal Labs, Yahoo, Blockchain at Berkeley, Blockchain Research Institute, Enigma as well. So if we kind of just have a look at some of the team members, we've got Ken, who's the CEO. So he's clearly got a background in terms of running businesses, scaling up businesses, and revenue generation in businesses. So that's always good to have a CEO that's focused, on how to create the business and grow the business as well at the same time. If we then have a look at the CTO, we've got Andrew Leung. And ultimately, Andrew has a very significant background from a developer's perspective, many years within this space, so clearly is capable and apt of leading that technology forefront within their organization. Then you've got their blockchain lead, so Abhishek Punia, and so he's kind of had backgrounds working at Draper Associates Blockchain, due diligence, Enigma as well, so that was a $45 million ICO from last year, so he's got background within there. Also faculty at Blockchain Research Institute, and also has worked on on-chain randoms library for Solidity as well. So clearly blockchain background, significant background within that space as well. So that's always good to have within the team, because ultimately what you need to understand is that the API is going to be working with cross blockchains. Looking at their lead architect, once again, blockchain background, developer for on-chain randomness, Dustin Sinky, who's their lead smart contract engineer. So once again, 4+ years as Stack developer, is their Solidity developer, so clearly knows around Solidity, integrating with Ethereum, all of those elements. So that's really good overall. They've got a director of strategy, so this is good as well. You know, what we see here is not just a team that's purely technically focused, but we've got a team that has individuals across the business covering all various bases, from running an organization to strategy within the organization as well. As we then move further down, we've got Dennis Lewis, so director of marketing, and marketing is really key, and I think we'll touch on this a bit later in terms of clearly they know what they're doing within that space as well. They've got managing directors as well. So once again, as I sort of go through, all I see is significant individuals with experience within the space, predominantly blockchain, from their core developer team, from their CTO to the sort of lead architects. Then we've got the rest of the business, which is around marketing, strategy, growth, and so they've got those bases covered as well. And then as I sort of then look down, we've got a number of advisors as well. So they've got operations advisor, Match.com. So that's, you know, Match.com, that's a very big e-commerce solution. You've got payment advisor, so this is good. You know, ultimately they're looking to be a payments platform. That's ultimately what they are, and they've got PayPal partner and payment entrepreneur as well, so that's really good, who also has a background creating technical literature around Bitcoin, around mining, so I like that as well. We've got early investors from Neo, Tron and Qtron. So I mean, you know, ultimately he's an early investor, that's fine, so clearly he has a bit of money behind him, but also Chandler Gao has actually ran one of the largest global Bitcoin mining operations. So, you know, it's nice to see that their advisors are also from within that space as well, but also not just from really helping them grow in terms of where they want to go, but also having experience within that blockchain experience as well. So overall, I really like what I see in the team. They certainly seem to have a good, well-rounded team, and, you know, certainly people placed in strategic places within that organization as well to kind of cover all bases and help them grow. Now, as we then move on, we do have a roadmap. So looking at the roadmap, and I like it, it's a nice detailed roadmap. So they've got the white paper that's already been published. They've got Open Complex MVP 2.0, so on-chain, which is looking to be developed this month. They've got their Open Testnet on-chain and off-chain MVP. Now this is really good, guys. So I haven't mentioned the prototype yet. They do have a 4-minute demo of their sort of on-chain, off-chain process happening. So they've got Ethereum, they're using Adapt, they're using a database on Mongo in order to actually keep all that payment data flow going back and forth. So I've put it in the links below. Do check it out. It's about 4 minutes long. But, you know, they've got an MVP, a prototype out as well. So that really speaks wonders in terms of they know what they're doing and they know what they're looking to do as well. So I quite like that, and certainly gives me confidence in the team. And then as we move on, we've got additional security designs. They've got a developer beta program as well. They've got an SDK coming out. And then they've got Open 1.0, which goes live. So clearly it looks like they're not really going to be ready to port onto Ethereum until July 2018, this year. So at the moment they're kind of working their way up. We're in March at the moment, so the token sales also happening this month shortly. So we've got a few months to wait until they actually get their mainnet out, which is basically looking to go live in July at this point, and that's on the that's ultimately linking onto the Ethereum blockchain. And then they've got further developments to their SDK, and then additional areas where they're looking at bringing in Ethermint, IPFS, and all of those elements in order to progress. And so ultimately, you know, we're looking at Q4 2019 when they're fully got a multi-coin integration open wallet. So whilst they're saying at the beginning, you know, as I was going through, that it's an open wallet, a multi-chain wallet, that's not going to be there until the back end of next year. So, but it's, you know, they're not going to be able to do it all in one go. But what I think one of the main key things here is that they're looking to, and they have already developed with the Ethereum blockchain. There was also mention of BTC as well, so Bitcoin. So I would also like to see that built in as well going forward. Looking at their token metrics, they've got around a total supply of 1 billion, of which they are looking to distribute 50%. So I like that. That's a decent cap size. 3% for bounty programs and 47% for the sale distribution. Now, in terms of the remainder, they've got 20% going for the developer adoption and growth pool. So this is where I mentioned earlier that there is the fee that kind of goes in, and that's really to pay out developers to be able to start using this platform so they become more mainstream. And you know, that's just good marketing overall at the end of the day. They've got team and partner advisors around 20%. I haven't been able to find out information in terms of what the private sale amounts were, but you know, it'd be good to find out at some point just to make sure. But ultimately the figures that we have here, you know, you shouldn't really be dumped on the moment it goes to exchange. You've got around 5% for the platforms and then 5% for the developers focused airdrops and community pools as well at the same time. Now what I do know is that the teams, their coins, and I believe the partners coins are vested, so there shouldn't be a significant dump of coins as well on that. In terms of how much they're looking to raise, so they've got 1 billion tokens in total. Of that, they're selling 500 million. They've got a hard cap of around 30 million. A little bit higher given that we're kind of in this ICO slump stage, but it's okay. I quite like 30 million. I don't think it's a money grab clearly here. They've gone to the effort of creating a prototype to show that it works. They really obviously want to take it that next step further. They've got a really good team that can support them and do that overall. So that basically puts the token price down at currently around 8 cents. So now let's move on to the final rating. So overall, I've given the project a 4. I really like what they're doing. I like the idea behind it. They clearly seem like they're going to be a first to market if they can get this out there in time. So, you know, that's certainly a plus. And the whole point of being blockchain agnostic, that's really powerful because ultimately this will open up doors for that team. They can work across blockchains. The adoption of the overall platform will go up as well because they're not limited to one. I also like the fact that, you know, it doesn't require developers who want to use the actual API to have significant development background within the blockchain of choice as well. The prototype, I've given it a 5. I've had a look at the prototype and I really like what I see. I like the way that it's actually worked using their API for the off-chain and on-chain data, and I would certainly recommend you check that out along with the white paper. Links will be in the description below. Looking at the team, I've given them a 4. You know, they've got significant experience in all of the areas. I like the fact that they're significant, you know, they have a big background within the blockchain space as well. Looking at the advisors, I've given it a 3. I mean, you know, to me, they're average advisors overall, but they do have a few key personnels in there, which I think can certainly open doors and partnerships for them. And clearly they have advisors within the payment space, which is quite crucial as they obviously want to become the provider to really enable payments on-chain and off-chain through applications. Token metrics, I've given it a 4. I like the overall split. I like exactly what they're doing in terms of within that space as well. Hype, I've given it a 5. Their hype is actually off the charts. Let me just quickly jump onto that relevant page just to kind of show you that quickly. So for hypes, as you can see, they've got 23,000 on Twitter, 4,000 on Medium, 42,000 on Telegram. Now these are really high overall across a number of different social media platforms, and one of the main reasons behind it is their bounty program. So the bounty program allows those who are tweeting, retweeting, creating content, etc., to be able to get free airdrops basically of the coins. So that's kind of where you've got the big push in terms of hype. So there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of talk around it in various social media platforms overall. So in terms of the project overall, I think it looks great. It's very wide on the radar chart. There's only a couple of areas. If they get a few more advisors on board, which are kind of a bit more focused within that space, or just have a bit more crucial partnerships that they can bring, then that can certainly push that out overall. But I definitely like what I see within this project. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the review. Please give it a thumbs up if you have. Thumbs down if you don't like it, and also please leave some comments below. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're coming back, thank you for coming back. Please give it a like. So see you soon, guys. Thanks for tuning in.